Guys, I'm going to give you an update on Centipede, where we're at now. It is the 1st of March 2025. At this point, I'm about 250 hours into the restoration process. So, got it pretty much stripped down. There's been a lot of work done as far as just cleaning, removing bracketry that wasn't used anymore, stuff like that. Electrical systems pulled. I pulled all the hydraulic lines, but where I'm at now is doing the lines neater. So they were just in a bundle, zip tied together, and they would all pass right through here. Well, that's sort of a short bend, and matter of fact, one of the big hoses wouldn't even fit, and so I had it just sort of laying at a diagonal going through there and stuff. And so what I came up with to neaten the hoses and to make them where they would go neatly across the pivot is actually oak. So they're oak boards from Lowe's, actually. Drilled the correct size holes and then split them on the bandsaw. So it's two halves. So the two halves will separate. You can lay your hoses and then bolt them back together. Of course, I'm going to round the edges and stuff. And then to be able to test, to make sure they're behaving properly and not doing anything weird like being pulled, with the engine and transmission in the back, there's enough ballast in the back that the cab is actually floating in space. So believe it or not, I can take one finger and do this. With one finger and move it.
Wow.
And then you can see right here that the hoses are following a nice arc. They're curving really nicely. These hose clamps they're not going to actually be here. These holes got drilled a little bit big, and the hoses were wanting to take a shortcut, and they were sliding every time. So I'll shim them with some rubber or something so that they actually get clamped and held so they all follow a nice arc. It's actually surprising how well and how easily this moves. So you move it all the way the other way. Like that. Of course, it'll go a lot further than that. I just don't have room in the shop. That's probably about where it would be steering. I think it'd go a little bit sharper than that. The interesting thing, if you come up here and look at the hinge pin, we couldn't really see that before because of the cylinders were here and there's a bunch of stuff in the way and everything. This hinge pin, I actually got from when I originally went to the hydraulic place and was telling them the idea. I was just trying to price. I was like, because I didn't even know what it's going to cost. Hoses, pumps, valves, all that stuff. And I told him what I was doing, and he's like, hey, I think I have something you can use in my scrap pile. So he came back with this hinge pin, and that's the original plate that was welded to it. All those were there, and it hinges about here, here, and here on the bottom. You see like that. It's hinging about those. And that's been great. It's about 2 inches in diameter and like 24 inches long. And there's no slack. So even jacked it up like this, you would think there'd be a little bit of play, but there's no perceptible play in any direction in it. Of course, I keep it greased real good. And, it's not like it's spinning all the time. It just moves just a little bit like that. So it's not really wearing. So that's actually worked out really well. And it was literally junk. Junk out of a scrapyard made the main pivot out on this thing. So we head on back here. Been fitting stuff. Had to fit the engine in place to be able to check for clearances on the air shocks. The torsion bars will do probably 60 to 70% of the weight carrying, and then these make up the difference so I can adjust, based on load and everything. So what we got going on here is a rotary bump stop. Now, it's not a new idea because if you look on the front, the red bracket's sticking out. I had little tires on the front when I first built it back in the early 90s. And they work really, really well. If you look at the video of Centipede jumping out in the sand dunes, and this thing weighs 3,000 pounds. So when I'm jumping, or you do a G out or something like that, tire comes up, hits this tire, but there's still 2.5 inches of travel left. To get that last 2.5 inches, both tires have to deform some. So the little tire deforms more, and it's based on air pressure. So you can adjust the air pressure and everything. Now, the beauty of this design is all your forces, your shock load forces, instead of having to hit a mechanical stop, whether it's an active or passive bump stop, and then sending all the forces through the stub axle, through the suspension and everything, we're sending the forces directly into the frame. So so the suspension and the stub axle and the bearings and everything, they never see the shock load. The shock load is bypassed. It goes around it all and goes straight into here and straight into the frame. And honestly, I probably would have bent something if you watch the video of how hard this thing was getting jumped, and it was over 100 times, and that's at one ride. And so, of all the places we've been and all the stuff I've done to it, it's surprising that it survived. I never did it to the back. I did it to the front as an experiment, and the front's heavier, so it made more sense to do it up there. So I'm going to do it to the back too, because I do know it works, because that's what we did back then. So anyway, that's pretty much where I'm at. The next steps are we're going to fabricate. We're basically going to copy the rear suspension into the front. Be a little bit easier because it's already been done back here, so we're making copies of everything. And then more prep work, and then painting. And then once it's painted and all the little pieces are painted and everything, then it's final assembly. So probably another 300 hours of work. Hopefully it'll be done.
Really?
So that's where we're at, and we'll keep you guys updated. Thanks for watching.